Hey everyone, welcome back to the Walk to Wealth podcast. If you're tuning in on YouTube or any of the podcast directories, make sure to do yourself one teeny tiny little favor and make sure to give us a follow because I don't want you to miss out on any of the amazing guests I got coming on this year. Without further ado, I got a very special guest. This lady that we have on here today is one of the reasons why I was able to make money as an entrepreneur because back when I started teaching social media classes, my whole goal for those of you who've been keeping up with the podcast, I started teaching social media classes for free because I was in a real estate mastermind, and it just so happens that I have one of the co-hosts of that very mastermind here on today, and so this lady has a very special place in my heart, Ellie McIntire. For anyone who hasn't had the pleasure, the opportunity to get to know you, to meet you yet, tell us your quick little elevator pitch. Who are you and what do you do?
You're sweet. I'm Ellie McIntire. I'm a licensed real estate agent in Central Maryland. I've been in the business for 22 years, and I live in Maryland, just outside in a town that I absolutely love, with my 18-year-old son who's getting ready to fly the nest very soon. And I have my hobbies are real estate. My side hustle is real estate. My part-time job is real estate, and my full-time job is real estate. So I'm a bit boring.
A whole lot of real estate. Well,
Mm.
you've been able to accomplish a lot in real estate. But before we get into all the amazing stuff you got cooking up now, take us back in the time machine. What was little Ellie like? Because I'm pretty sure you came here from the UK, if I'm not mistaken. So, what was life like growing up?
Small village, very similar to where I live now. You know, you had some doers in our village, and I think that really kind of I watched that happen as they created certain events, and we just had a really wonderful community. I went to drama school for 4 years, and I was dreadful. I don't even know why they let me carry on, and
Yeah.
I was born on a Thursday, and my whole concept was Thursday's child has far to go. So $500 in traveler's checks. I got on a plane January 1st, way before you were born, and came to the States, landed in Daytona Beach for spring break, thought I died and gone to heaven. And yeah, I mean, moved to Maryland in 1997. Worked in restaurants because clearly I was not supposed to be on the stage. I was
Yeah.
dreadful, and got into real estate in 2002.
All right. So let's unpack a little bit. So you said you got into drama school and you hated that. I'm not surprised,
No, I didn't
honestly.
hate it. That's not true.
Oh,
I actually,
you,
I had. This was when, like I said, also this is predates you by many, many years. This is when Fame was like everybody was singing the song from Fame, and we would prance around this, the drama school in our leggings and our leotards, and we thought that we were the hottest thing ever. And but I was just awful. My drama teacher used to give me like the parts like I was always the police officer, I was the grandma, or I was never the sexy parts. I was always the awful parts. So it I could tell pretty early on that wasn't for me. I mean, I have a photographic memory, but I'm not the smartest person, so I could actually learn my lines, but I would read my lines, so I didn't ever internalize them. I don't know if you've
Mhm.
ever heard of Stanislavski. Stanislavski is it's a whole method acting. I didn't do that. I just read the page on the stage, and it was boring.
Yeah.
So could tell pretty early on that wasn't my calling. But then again, I mean, I think that real estate has got some elements of that as well.
No, 100%. I don't know if I ever told you. I did monologue for my church back in like fourth and fifth grade. I did. We had a competition each year, so I have two first place trophies for my division, and then I went to the I guess the regionals or national. I think it's the run right before nationals. I think it's territorials. There we go. It's called territorials. So I won my region, and then I went to territorials and got absolutely cooked. But that's where I learned that I had a pretty good memory as well. When you're in fourth and fifth grade, I mean, I wasn't in any acting growing up. I was always involved in the church. So like, I just remembered the lines really quick. I would just read them over and over and over, and just
Yeah,
I got to the point where like, I could just spit back out the lines. But I wasn't really a good actor. I just had great memory. But at that
that's
age, I
very
feel like
similar.
it takes you a long way.
Yeah.
At least it took me to territorials 2 years back to back. So that was early on. All right, so fast forward. You said you came to
Well,
the
it's funny
states.
because when I left school, I never did typing because I refused to be pigeonholed as a secretary. We're talking a lot
Yeah.
longer, a long while ago. And then I actually got into a nursing school and I lasted there 3 hours. And that's how I ended up in drama school because it's like, I got to do something. I am not
Yeah.
doing nursing. And you know me pretty well and my personality. Could you imagine me taking care of people? That would be
I
pretty
can't.
scary. No, no, not at all.
I would imagine a bunch of injured old people. That's what I would
Oh, yeah.
imagine. Because you would
Oh,
tell them to get up and go do it yourself, and they would try to get out of the wheelchair and fall down the stairs or something.
yeah. No compassion. Sorry.
But yeah, no, you're very compassionate, just in your own way, and in a way I appreciate. Because I play football, so it's like give it to me straight, right? I don't need coddling. I need someone to like. Tough love is more compassionate to me than from what most other people would say. So just compassionate in your own way, I would say. But
Disagree.
all right, so
I have none.
talk to me about flying from Europe to Florida way back when. What was that like? Where did you fly alone? What was that?
Yeah.
That whole
I mean,
experience like?
when you're 21 years old and you really kind of don't have it figured out, it was a lot safer to travel back then. I mean, living in England, we would do weekend trips to Europe. We would go to France or Germany or Belgium or, Holland, and we would just kind of
Yeah,
get back. We would hitchhike everywhere.
yeah,
So, this was a whole different era. And I did have an aunt and uncle in the US. So I stayed with them and realized I think they lived in Naperville, which was Chicago, and it was like
yeah.
minus 200 degrees and I was like, nah, this is not for me. So I just went to Florida and figured it out from there and spring break. And I mean, as a young kid, I'd worked in like a restaurant environment because my aunt had a restaurant. So I just kind of went that way. And,
Yeah.
after a while, I started with a chain restaurant. I worked with Outback Steakhouse. Didn't you do that too? Well, I know
I
you
worked at a
had,
restaurant, yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
I
you
worked at a
went to a
restaurant
restaurant.
3 years while I was in real estate.
Yeah,
And like
yeah,
before I got into it as well.
yeah. So I was a corporate trainer for Outback Steakhouse for a while. Um, and then the manager was proprietor, they called the name. The proprietor of the restaurant went and opened another restaurant and didn't take me with him, which it's devastating at the time, but hindsight
Hmm.
was that was the absolute best thing ever. And the new guy that came in, I didn't care for him, and I gave him an ultimatum one time. I said, fine, I quit. He goes, fine, I accept. I'm like, here we go. So got into real estate, and I love working for myself. I've
Yeah.
always had a really good work ethic. I'm the person that puts their hand up for the extra shifts in the restaurants. I'm the person that stays late, or comes in early. So
Yeah.
that was something I got from my dad. My dad worked super hard, and he didn't work smart necessarily. He just worked hard, and he
Yeah.
would always work. And I think that I got that from him. My parents were also dreadful with money, absolutely terrible with money,
Yeah.
and that is something. Thankfully, I have the antithesis of this because I am very frugal, and except when I cruise, I do cruise, and I go way over the top when I cruise, but I live a very frugal life, and it's I think that comes down to watching my parents struggle forever and ever, and I don't want to ever be in that situation.
Yeah, you mentioned something in there too about working for yourself. So you said you came from a small village. Like, what was growing up the idea around entrepreneurship, owning your own business? Like, because you mentioned, I said, I know from my grandparents, they were similar story, right? They grew up in a very small village. Had to walk, a couple miles to go to the closest well and get the water. They had like farms,
Not
cows, all
quite
that
that
stuff.
bad.
Like,
Yeah,
oh, it wasn't that bad. Oh yeah, my grandparents lived in the sticks, in Dominican Republic. So like they're very very humble beginnings before they came to the states. So for them, similar to what you were saying, it's like all they knew was hard work. There wasn't anything
yeah,
called work smarter. Just everything is hard work, no matter what you're in or where you're at. It's like the only way is to work hard. There wasn't working smart really,
yeah.
at least not like there is today. So like, where did that idea of like being you're working for yourself, kind of like when did that seed get planted?
That's a really good question. When I grew up, it was everybody that went. We all went to the same elementary school, the middle school. Well, we called it different things. We called it primary school, junior high,
Secondary.
not even called junior school, and then we called it secondary school, which
Hmm.
is such a weird word for. But
High
ours was
school.
called Linton Village College, and everybody I went to school with was in the same classes going up. And then just for the secondary school, the high school, there was other villages that came in, and I would say 80% of those people that I went to school with, and I knew everybody in my school. I mean, it was literally
Yeah.
there was 500 people in my school, and that was the whole of the village, and about four or five, six, seven villages as well. And everybody is probably still there. John's the plumber, and Tim's the electrician, and
Hmm.
Julian's the car mechanic. I actually got them all mixed up, but they're all still there. And I knew that wasn't for me. And just traveling, I mean, I would travel for 6 months and then work for 6 months, travel for 6 months, work for 6 months. So for about 10 years after I got to the States, I would work to save money to then travel. And I've seen the world like multiple times. And
Yeah.
it was, that was where my work hard, play hard kind of mentality came from. Um, I would get to some places and it would, you have to make decisions. Do you go ride on the elephants or do you eat for the day? Well, it's like, I can eat tomorrow. I'll ride for the elephants today. So there was a lot of negotiating with myself what was valuable and what I wanted to do. And in a lot of situations, I traveled alone too, but I met people when I got to certain places. And just having that mentality of independence
Yeah.
when you work for somebody and you give it everything and you don't get recognized for that, that got old. So when the opportunity of real estate came along, and I was more concerned about saving them $15 on certain things in the restaurant, and it was like, okay, now I can do that for myself. So I guess I've always kind of had that freedom and independence, which real
Hmm.
estate, I believe, gives me.
Yeah, I really always admired that about you, about how much you love to travel. I might have told you, but I'm big into points and miles as well myself, and so most of my travel, almost all my travel, is strictly for business. So it's like I don't even get to enjoy it too much because you go to a conference, you go to a workshop, you're in a hotel the whole time you're there. But I'm playing my cards right so that I'm building up my Marriott. I'm one night away right now from getting Marriott Titanium status.
Wow,
For
that's
the
awesome.
yeah, and that's like the second highest status that you can get. And
Yep.
so I'm literally one night away before this year ends to getting that. And so I'm sitting on almost 250,000 points right now. I'm gonna just book a night with points just to get it, so that I
Yeah.
can have titanium for all of next year. So and I've been setting myself up and playing my cards right for when I get to the point where my business just thriving and flourishing, that I'm gonna be able to go wherever I want and get treated at the highest level of excellence no matter where I go. Because one thing I realized, and it sucks, but I mean, I'm not gonna try and create a brand new world, but people treat you better when you have status, right? Especially like walking into like an establishment, like a high end restaurant or a high end hotel. Like they write you off depending on what you wear and how you look and how you walk in. And as soon as they look up your profile and they see a status attached to it, people perk up really quickly. Their tones change up. They posture comes up a little bit. Hi, Mr. Mendez. I thank you so much for your loyalty. We're eternally grateful. And so I mean, I seen that, and it's little things like that, but it makes the experience that much better. So I'm setting myself up, but to kind of come back and zoom in a little bit, you mentioned about like you having that independence. So take us back to that point in time where you gave that ultimatum right before you got into real estate. What was that time period like? Because I know for me, when I finally was able to like pull the plug on my restaurant job, it was bittersweet. The entrepreneur in me was ecstatic. Like that was the best day of my life. I can finally, I had a big, workshop, and then it went really, really well, and I had, gotten a good amount of money to save up and leave. But on the drive over there, I remember driving. It was only like a 5 minute drive, and I was like, how on earth do I even bring this up in conversation? I never quit a job, right? So it's like, and that part was like my whole young adulthood was spent at that restaurant. Like I started working there in 2020, right before I turned 19, and like there was during the pandemic, so like every day was like Groundhog's Day for like 2 years working at that place.
Yeah.
Like that was a big portion of I said my whole young adulthood. So it was bittersweet, but it was the thing I needed to do to get to where I'm at now. And had I stayed, who knows where I would be? I'd probably still be, I'd be playing on the fence still. So what was that time period like for you when you gave that ultimatum and you decided to quit? And what was going through your mind as you were about to get into real estate?
I guess I run risks. I mean, that's what negotiating is, right? I mean, you're playing chicken constantly, and I didn't expect him to say that, but in hindsight's 2020, it was definitely the best thing that ever happened to me.
Hmm.
And a funny thing is when was that? That was 2019. The I was at a restaurant. I'd taken my team out for a Christmas dinner, and I was talking to the restaurant manager, and the the proprietor that had left and not taken me with him, he walked
Hmm.
into the restaurant, and I hadn't spoken to him in, oh gosh, what was that, 19? So that was uh, I don't know, 20 years. I hadn't spoken to him for 20 years. And I walked up to him and I shook his hand and I said, "Thank you so much for not taking me with you. I now make twice what you make in a year and I'm much happier and I don't have the overhead you do. And I wouldn't have had that if you had taken me with me. So thank you again." And that was a banner moment right there that I could
Yeah.
basically throw it back in his face that I did way better than you ever imagined. And I wouldn't have done if those different steps hadn't happened.
Hmm.
I may be running a restaurant right now and be miserable, but it was definitely those pushes, those God winks, as you say, that push you
Yeah.
to do things that ended up, being the best thing that had ever happened to me. So, but the actual leaving, yeah, I just doubled down. I got into real estate and I didn't sell a house till I was in the business for, oh gosh, it was 9 months, I think, maybe a little longer
Hmm.
than that. But I did all the activities. I listened hard and I was literally following up with all the activities that I ended up getting rookie of the year that year because I just like hit the ground. As soon as that first one went, it was like dominoes. They just kept
Yeah.
coming. So because I had set the groundwork, which is, our industry is definitely a place that you don't make money right away, but you got to stay consistent. And I'm good at consistency, and thankfully it paid off.
Yeah. So talk to us about that. So you said 9 months it took you, which is about pretty average. I think a lot of people take them somewhere between 6 to 12 months before they ever get their first deal. But being able to live in that uncertainty in that where it's like nothing is working out, it's tough at times, especially even for me. Even I ended up taking like a bit of a different path, but it's like when you're working so hard towards something and results aren't in the aren't coming. Where it's like, for example, in basketball, like if you work hard, like you're gonna the score, right? Whereas like something like real estate and something like owning a business, you're putting up all these shots, you're putting up everything, but like you don't know if it's actually contributing to the scoreboard or not. You're kind of just testing things out, and it could be almost discouraging a little bit because you just don't know. There's a lot of things you just don't know, and you have to just stick with whatever your process is until it grows. So like, um, what kind of kept you through that first 9 months? Like, what kind of kept you pushing? So and I mean, I'm sure you probably felt discouraged, but like overall, you ended up sticking with it. So like, what helped you to stick through that first period before you sold that first home?
Actually, it wasn't difficult. I was working with a different brokerage. I wasn't with Keller Williams, and it was the kind of brokerage where I would say people went to die. I mean, the average age was way older. They would only go to the team meeting, which had no value for the free bagels and the orange juice that they provided. Uh, and I knew that I was working circles around them. I knew I was doing what I was supposed to do. I knew I was, building a database of people. I was doing the activities people didn't want to do, and to this day,
Hmm.
people don't want to do. People don't want to work as hard as I do, and I
Yeah.
don't think I work very hard. But I think John Maxwell says people always they they want the, how does he say it? They don't do to do the did that I do. So they want it. They want it easy, and it sounds awful, but it's very much an American mentality of like, well,
Yeah.
I get it because I am who I am, not because I work hard. And the immigrants that I know that are like me as an immigrant, everybody I know just works super hard. And you can't focus on what's around you. You just got to put your head down and work. and ultimately it came to fruition. I did go through the crash of 2006, and it was like to the day. It was August 17th when the bottom fell out. But that's the day Drew was born, and it
Yeah.
definitely got, as a single mom, it got a lot harder. And we had gone through the heydays when you cough and you made money, and all of a sudden it had really tightened up. And I just had to keep working. I didn't have the luxury of sitting around and cooing over a baby. I had to keep working
Yeah.
because I'm the only provider for this child, and it that's a motivator as well. So, a medley of not wanting to end up like my parents, not wanting to work for somebody else, not really having put into the equation an option to do something else. As my child, what are you doing? To do something else, and ultimately to know that you only achieve by being consistent. So when the crash happened in '06, '07, I knew it was like going back to '02 when I just had to work harder. But
Mhm.
there's work smarter too. So, work smarter is talk to the people that are around you. I mean, Gary Keller has talked about the database for so many years and how important that is. And that's the way that I started in my business, was literally focusing on database.
Yeah. So, I mean, talk to us a little bit because one of the things you've done a ton is you've always invested in like yourself as well. So I know you were working hard, but sometimes like when you're working hard, but you don't have any direction or any guidance, like people can work hard and go all the way off left and be completely off course, right? So like,
True.
what were you doing outside of just putting in the work to like help you know where to go and what steps to take? Because you mentioned you after that first house, you said it started like coming in almost kind of like dominoes, right? So like,
Yeah.
how are you able to like keep the momentum going and continue to grow? Because for anyone that's listening, Ellie sells a lot of houses and has been selling a lot of houses for a long time now. And year in, year out, it's almost like clockwork at this point. It's like, this is like, what have you been doing outside of just the actual work to help you stay on track, to help you see what's coming and what's changing? As we've been through multiple crashes now and you survived all of it, and I'm sure you had to pivot and change your strategy a bit. Yes, hard work plays a factor, but some things don't work as well as they used to anymore, right? For example, you're not going into yellow pages anymore to go find people anymore. It's like
Yeah,
some
that's true.
things are very different. So how were you able to pivot? Because I think a lot of times too that stops a lot of people. Once you get to a level of success where you don't need to work anymore, it really shows who you are. Because then it's like, well, do I need to keep going this hard? Do I need to keep investing in myself? And you mentioned that you were pretty frugal, so like after a certain point in time, you probably had more than enough to like take care of everything. So like what kept you going through that? Or how do you stay, on your feet, on your toes as a business owner, as a real estate agent, so that you could survive all those ups and downs that we had over the past like 2 decades?
Hmm. That's really good questions. Um, I'm a life learner. I enjoy learning. I mean, the fact that the pivot community is a classic example of that. You've got all of these people, and there's in Keller Williams alone, there's over 180,000 realtors, and only 1,000 or so get onto this call every day. And
Yeah.
a lot of the people that are on the call are people that I have massive props for. They are titans in the industry of consistency. And so if you see those people, and if they're still doing it, like James just interviewed Crystal McCall. Crystal McCall's been doing it for 44 years. He interviewed Pat Straley. What's her next part? Weiss Straley
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
uh, Philadelphia. Also, same thing, same thing. It's very similar to, when you first get in the industry and you're trying to push a rock up a hill, you might be in, you go two steps forward, one step back, and it can be very disheartening to feel like you stayed in the same place, but you feel like you've given it every energy you can. Well, the truth of the matter is, it's kind of like when you buy a house. The interest and the principal, they every month when you own a house, that number changes by six pathetic little dollars. or that seriously. I mean, it's like, okay,
Yeah.
so last month my principal payment was $2,966, and now this month is $2,960, and next month
Yeah.
it's 2,954. I mean, those small little increments are, they're disheartening to the point of like, why am I doing this? It's like I'm never going to get to that, but it does. But if you
Mhm.
keep doing it consistent, but if you have the squirrel effect when you're constantly going shiny object, then you're going to waste energy and then come back to the beginning. And it's about consistency. Brian Buffini was somebody I was very fortunate to be introduced to as soon as I got into the industry. And he spoke to me about the fact that he doesn't do cold calling, and he didn't do FISBOs or expireds or anything like that. He works with people that he knows, likes, and trusts. And that is key right there. I had pie day yesterday. So I had almost 200 clients stop by to pick up a pie. And
Mhm.
they could easily afford to buy a $15 pie anywhere, but they chose to out of their day to drive here for me to hand them a pie, which they probably spent more in gas with the cost of gas right now than the actual pie cost. But
Yeah.
that's the community. When you build a community, another Gary Keller thing says that you don't build a moat around your database to keep people from getting in. You put the moat around to keep people from leaving. And if you're consistent with your communication with the people that know, like, and trust you, and what bigger trust is there in real estate? Somebody trusts you to find them a home or sell their home, their biggest asset possible, then right there you've already got a massive check mark. So my goal is to stay. I mean, one of the persons last night, she bought a house back in 2003. And I don't have to say to her, "Hi, Lisa, this is Ellie McIntire with Keller Williams. Yeah, it's been a while." We're the relationship that you have with those people is cemented in the relationship that we build and that we're constant with. And I haven't seen Lisa for a year, but it's like I saw her yesterday, and she's been in my life for 21 years. So it's there's a lot to be said for staying very, very close to your database. And I think that was a mentality that I had long before I came into real estate.
Yeah, like I think, I don't know if you would probably give credit to the restaurant to this, but I know for me it did definitely. Like when you're working at a restaurant, you just come into contact with so many different people from so many different backgrounds, with so many different personality styles. Like it teaches you to become a people person, whether you want to or not. Like you're dealing with all these different people, and you're sometimes it's like, so the restaurant I worked at was a nightclub on the weekends. So like then you throw alcohol into the mix, and so it's
Yeah.
like now you're dealing with a whole like super spectrum of people, like crazy people, drunk people, sloppy drunk people, and so you get to see so much working at a restaurant. But also I'm sure you've seen a lot traveling, so like how would you say has traveling helped you? Because one thing I love personally, it's like having these podcasts, I get to talk to people from all over this place, and you get to get more perspective, and I think perspective is something that's slept on. A lot of people try to speak as if they know, and I think they don't come from a place of curiosity. Especially, I'm talking more so about the younger generation. It's very easy, as you mentioned. I think it's an American thing to feel entitled, to feel like you're on top of the world and you know it all. Partially because you're young, and partially because we live in the States, right? And so it's like you've got to see so many different parts of the world. So like how has that impacted your mindset and your perspective, being able to see all these different cultures, being able to see all these different walks of life from all these different parts of the world?
So there was definitely a lot of um, amazing places that I went to. Um, but I've always been a very much a. It's funny. I'm going to segue back into a database. I have. I used to call it a filofax, and it was basically like what your phone is now. It has everything in it, your address book and command and all these things in there. So I carried it around with me, and it's where you have like a binder, and you open it and you put the new calendar in, etc. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I would write postcards all the time. When I first left the UK, I told my grandmother, I think I told you this story, right? I told my grandmother I'd send her a postcard from everywhere I went to, and I have two massive volumes of postcards of every single place I went to. Sometimes when I was traveling across the state, I would have to write 7 or 8 postcards. I'm driving through Oklahoma and, Missouri to get to whatever, Kentucky. So I would buy all these postcards and write all these postcards. So I would always take people along with me. And I was very consistent about writing a journal, which I haven't done since I had my son, and I wrote him a journal and then I just stopped. But I have all these journals that were where I would pour out all of these amazing things that I was seeing, and sunsets and sunrises and beaches and people I'd meet along the way and experiences. And I thought I was going to die in Paris, and then there was just absolute perfect scenarios in Thailand or in Australia, in the middle of Ayers Rock, where we actually got to climb Ayers Rock. You can't climb it anymore because it's a religious artifact, I guess, of
Hmm.
Australia. But back in the late 80s, that we could still climb that. So yes, do I have like this amazing wealth of memories? Absolutely. And I think that that kind of gives me even more of a power to just keep working right now because I enjoy it so much. And there's no point in doing something you don't enjoy. If somebody does it just for the paycheck, then that's a really sad life to live because we only have one life.
No, 100%. I think it's very easy too to kind of get caught up in that, especially once you start having bills. I think one of the things that I ain't like my transition into adulthood. I feel like as soon as I left college, bills just started popping up. I got a car, and then I had to pay insurance, and then I
Yeah.
started helping out my grandparents with the rent here and all this stuff. And just like bills just started creeping up, and then I became a business owner. Now it's like I just got an email, literally like a couple of days ago, talking about your realtor board fees are due in a month. I'm like, oh, another bill, and like I feel like bills just pop up all the time nowadays as an adult. And I think it's pretty easy to get caught up in the chasing the check. I think also too with hustle culture, I think it has a big part to play in why people are so fixated on money. And it's almost been become like popularized, right? It's just like head down, tunnel vision. All you gotta do is focus on money, 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 and then you see all these people now who kind of like profit out of that, like just bunch of people who are lost and misguided and don't really have any direction. And you hear these people on social media, and it's like, oh, you just gotta work, you just gotta do this, you just gotta get to and the lifestyles they flex and demonstrate online, it
Yeah,
can
but
be
you're
very
you're talking
appealing.
about social media where a lot of people are probably hurting behind the camera anyway. You got to take everything with a grain of salt. I think,
Yeah.
I can remember asking a bunch of eighth graders, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And they all wanted to be a YouTube star. Son, what are you doing? They all wanted to be, a YouTube influencer, and it's like not everybody gets to do that. I mean, there's a lot of yucky jobs that are out there. The way that most people push their kids to college when they don't even want to do college. Seriously? um, but it's, that there's it. This too will pass. I mean, kids are going to have to realize that they're not everything's happy-go-lucky, and there's lots of different things that uh, we have to focus on. One thing that I think that you've got to get used to the boring. So there is
Hmm.
boring, but nowadays I find that parents entertain their children constantly all the time, that they don't ever have those boring times because they're constantly moved around. So I'm excited that my kid gets to go and travel now, kind of like the way I traveled. So
Yeah.
I think it'd be good for him too.
Yeah. So to add to that point, because your son is 18 years old, so he's about to get into the adult world. Like, what are
Yeah.
some of the traits that you're trying to instill in him as he starts seeing the world, as he starts, getting to explore other
That is such a
like
wrong
other
question.
lifestyles?
I, I don't know. I don't know if I failed this parent game or not. I mean, it's not as you know you I don't know. I plead the fifth on that question.
No way. I
I
think
don't know. We're working
when it
our way
comes to
through that day by day.
yeah, no way. It's like exciting. There's one trip also when I was in college, my freshman year. I was supposed to go to Germany, and
And you didn't
as
go?
a pandemic, three
Oh,
months before. Yeah, 2020 March. We never came back from spring break,
yeah.
and so everything got canceled. Yeah, I still remember like it was yesterday. I was on the we had it was me and I had this group of friends. It was five of us in total, and I remember we all hung out, and then we all were on the way back from we hung out one of our friends' dorm, and we were all going back to our own dorms, and I was on the I think I was on the bus. It's called a yellow line. I think it's on no, I think I was on the way there, either on the way there or the way back, and I was on the yellow line, and I just remember saying like, man, we'll be back in a week. No worries. It's like John, like no, it's I don't know if you check the news. It's something serious. And so like that whole moment right there, it feels so weird because it's like from that point on, we ended up never coming back. And so there's a lot of things that I probably a lot of things would be so we probably wouldn't never met had I stayed in school. I don't know if the entrepreneurial bug would have ever kicked in.
Well, I
So
agree. I think there's so many people that are in my life now. I mean, you talk about early birds, Lee Corey and Paul Corey. I
yeah,
feel like they're part of my family.
yeah,
And, I'm constantly talking about the COVID gift. I think COVID, I think it was like a reset to start with. And I truly agree that kids got the worst of this. My
hmm
kid was in eighth grade at the time, and
sheesh,
maybe his whole high school experience would have been completely different if it wasn't for COVID. But in my world, thankfully, I found the pivot community and the amount
yeah,
of people that I've added into my universe because of COVID that may not have been there, and it's kind of tough. I mean that year itself ended up being a phenomenal year business wise, but it started really slow,
yeah,
and then just from hard work and moxie, it ended up being one of the best years of my career.
yeah,
So, you if you face adversity head on, no matter what, and there's only the unknown of the unknown. So, I mean, obviously, like you said, you had your college years cut short by having to deal with COVID, and but now look at you. You're
yeah.
probably doing something you enjoy on a regular basis, and you have this massive database. And whereas people you went to school with are probably swimming in debt and not anywhere near as happy as what you are.
Yeah, as I said, it's a blessing. I heard someone say, and I'm not going to word it as eloquently, but like someone say somewhere, it was like, in any tragedy or any, bad thing in life, there's always going to be people who, you know, get hit hard. There's always going to be people who stay roughly the same. There's always going to be people who find a way to thrive amidst it all. And so, for me, as that was the biggest blessing ever. I got to sit back in my own thoughts and like reassess like what I actually wanted to do,
Yeah,
and for me, I wasn't entrepreneurial before I got into real estate. Surprisingly, like I didn't have this entrepreneurial bug, but like once it hit me, I was like, hey, I got to get this going. I got to get this off the ground. And so I'm thankful for what happened, the way it all played out. Because I said I wouldn't be here, and I'm enjoying the journey. And if it takes me a little longer to get to, let's say, six figures or whatever, or seven figures, or all this whatever financial accolades and milestone, so be it. Like I'm enjoying the journey, and I get to meet tons of amazing people
yeah.
all the time. So it's like
Well,
I'm just
you
having
have
fun
youth
with
on
it.
your side, John. I mean, you are.
Yeah,
You know, I sometimes sit back, and you can't do that because you can't compare your out insides to other people's outsides. I mean, and I know there's been struggles for you too, but you have your whole life ahead of you. I mean, I think what are you, 22 now?
23.
23. Wow. I remember when
When
you
we
were
met, I couldn't even
underage.
get a drink.
I know. Exactly. 23. What did I do in 23? I think 23 was when I drove across the states in 21. 22 when I was 22. When I was 22, I was in Australia. I was backpacking through Australia. 23, after the season ended, I went through Europe. I think that was the first year I went to Oktoberfest in Munich, and um, Greece and Czechoslovakia and all these places that
Hmm.
no longer exist, and nearly killed a bunch of people in a combi van because I tried to overtake someone going up a hill. But I mean, it's if I knew what you knew, if I knew then what you know now,
Hmm.
I might not be working anymore. So,
Yeah.
I had the flip side of most people. I played hard for 12 years of my adult working life and then said, okay, now I've got to get realistic about this and, get a real career. And that's when I stopped traveling as much. But I've seen many, many places that I'm happy about. And
Yeah.
this is my time to work now. And thankfully, I found something that I feel I'm pretty good at. And it's definitely rewarding to me. It's tiring too, very
Yeah.
tiring as well. Sometimes, well, a lot of the times, there's a lot of boredom that comes with it. And, but yet it funds my perfect life. So it's
Yeah. Life by
ultimately
design, right?
exactly live unreal. So,
Yeah. So, Ellie, real estate, Maryland is like I can't untie the two. So, for anyone that wants to keep up with you, anyone wants to connect with you, or anyone that's moving to the area, how can we find you on the internet so we can get in touch with you so we can see all the amazing things you got going on and as I said, hopefully get your help when it's time to move to the area. And I know
yeah.
like Baltimore, DMV, I was kind of like I'm not sure like geography, like how much of it you all cover. I just know
No.
Baltimore and I think Ellie.
Yeah, and that's pretty much it. I don't go too far out. I don't do DC. I have great disdain for somebody that says, "Oh, I service Virginia, Maryland, and DC." It's like you're watering down your abilities. I'm sorry, I don't care if you think you do that well, but I don't think you do. So I'm very
Yeah.
focused on a small area, but I feel like I do that well. Um, I am. I like to say I'm an old lady stuck in a young. No, I'm a young person stuck in an old lady's body. But well, obviously I have a kid, so I do the social media. I even had a viral video on TikTok, which I was
Oh.
joked about. But I'm on. I do a lot of groups, Facebook groups. But then, of course, if you're interested in real estate, there is our early birds talking real estate that we have literally done for almost 4 years now. February 3rd will be 4 years of every single morning, 6:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We talk about real estate Monday through Friday. So that has kept me very consistent in my day. And I think it's, what's they say, win the morning, own the
Win the
day.
day.
So,
Yeah.
but that's,
And so
yeah, Central Maryland.
all right, Ellie, now it's time for our famous 5 questions. Same 5 questions I ask every single guest that hops on.
Really?
Uh,
Okay.
Question number one: what is the most impactful lesson you've learned in life?
Well, that's a big one. Most impactful message I've learned in life. Can I come back to that one?
Nope. Whatever comes to mind. Don't think about it. Just
I'm
whatever
not
speak.
deep enough for that, John. I'm really not. I mean, it's my dad always says it's not what you know, it's who you know.
Hmm.
I always kind of went with that, and it was like Thursday child has far to go. But yeah, it's not what you know, it's who you know. It's kind of on the line of, people don't care what you know until they know that you care. And
Hmm.
it's not what you know, it's who you know, but it's actually who knows you. So influence comes with who knows you.
Yeah. What is the most admirable trait a person could have?
Oh, also, once again, that's a tough one because I don't have any compassion. What can somebody have? I don't know. I know, and you could have given me these beforehand, but what is the?
Nope.
I don't
No
know.
one gets them beforehand.
Hmm. What's the most admirable trait somebody could have? Hard work. They got to be a hard worker.
If you had to change someone's life but only had one book to give, which one would you recommend?
Shift.
What is the legacy that you're working on leaving behind?
It's funny. Um, if he's not in earshot anymore, but I'm almost. I feel bad now that I've. If something happens to me, he may not ever have to work, and I'm actually thinking that's a bad thing. But yeah, making sure my child was is going to be comfortable. But I think I've overdone it, to be honest. But yeah.
And for anyone that wants to embark on their own walk to wealth, what is the very first step you recommend they take?
Buy a house, live in it for 2 years, buy another house, rent that house out. House hacking. If I had learnt that one a lot earlier, I would probably be living in the Caribbean right now. So, yeah, I think that real estate is absolutely the way to wealth beyond.
Alrighty, Elliot. Thank you so much for your time today. It was a
Sorry, I messed up
absolute
those last
pleasure.
5 questions. I'm not that deep,
Listen,
I swear.
no worry, Ellie. You didn't mess up anything. You gave us a ton of nuggets in here, and I'm just glad we got to catch up. I feel like it's been forever since we last talked.